Now, I have heard from a number of constituents, probably over 100, concerned with the increases they've seen in their BG&E bills particularly over the wintertime. And you've asked me to try to explain it. We solicited input on what we should talk about next. And so electric prices, energy prices, are today's topic of Sarah Explains It All. And I am back in my old stomping grounds. I'm at the Maryland State House, where I spent 6 years in this chamber with a very special guest, Senate President Bill Ferguson, who is living and breathing energy policy right now in the tail end of the legislative session. This is going to air pretty soon after we film it. And so can you talk to us a little bit about, from your vantage point, representing the 46th district of Maryland, which is in Baltimore City, but being a statewide senator, what do you attribute these increased prices in people's energy bills to be?
You know, I wish I had the easy answer, right? I think that's what everybody wants, is the easy answer for why the heck's my utility bill so high. There are a lot of confounding factors hitting all at the same time. Yes, it has been colder, which means the winter months, there's more gas being used, higher costs. Yes, rates have been approved that are higher, and that is impacting the total cost. And so what we've seen is higher rates with greater usage, and the most important is really a growing energy crisis of supply here in the state of Maryland. And so there's short-term issues and there's long-term issues.
Okay. Can you dig into, we're gonna get a little wonky, dig into the longer-term issues that we're experiencing with supply?
Yeah, so Maryland's we're in a grid that has 13 states in DC. So our grid is interconnected between states, and there is an entity called PJM that manages this grid. So when you think of BG&E as your utility, what they are in charge of is getting the electrons from the transmission line into your home. That's what you pay your major utility bill on. But there is the supply of the actual electrons that have to be generated and sent to the house. And so we exist within this broader system. And in Maryland, 40% of our energy is imported from out of state because we don't make enough.
Okay. And I know you're working on all kinds of plans. When I was at the State House, I worked on solar energy plans. We're working on geothermal. We're working on all kinds of issues to try to up that supply, which is really important right now. Can you speak, because we're in the midst of your legislative session, I have a legislative session that goes 2 years. You all have 90 days now. What legislative response are you and your colleagues here in the State Senate, here in the Maryland House of Delegates working on?
So from the beginning of session, the Speaker and I have said and put forward a leadership package about utility bills because we know it is the top issue that people are talking about and are worried about. Average Maryland families are incredibly frustrated, just like mine. And so we are trying to do whatever we can to make energy costs more predictable and more affordable, and ultimately our energy cleaner in the long run. And so we have a series of 3 bills that are really focused on more Maryland-made energy that is cleaner than the energy that we produce today, which largely comes from coal. And so we are trying to make it easier to produce energy from all sources that are cleaner than coal so that we can lower prices in the long run.
Okay. So, Mr. President, we talked a little bit about supply and generation, but are there other components as to why we're not producing enough energy to meet this moment? So
in Maryland, I said that 40% of our energy comes from out of state, sources. That can be all types of things. But another 40% comes from Calvert Cliffs, which is a nuclear facility that produces 40% of all of Maryland's energy used today. We're looking for ways to expand that facility and make it financially viable to increase the production there. That is one of the best carbon-free ways that we can expand energy access here in Maryland. But what we know is we're going to have to replace the coal plants that we have with other models, be it solar and battery and wind. It's going to be all of the above.
Right. So there's no one supply is going to save the situation.
There is no one answer. And if there's anything, it is we have to have a diverse approach to having more Maryland-made energy here.
All really important work, and I appreciate that, and I know you're working on some budget solutions too that hopefully we'll be able to announce at some point, and I'm grateful to that. From my vantage point in Congress, I serve on the House Natural Resources Committee, which has drilling issues within it, and I think a misnomer from a policy perspective is actually the U.S. is producing more oil and gas than ever in the history of the world, but we're exporting a lot of it. We're not keeping it here in the States, and it's not benefiting necessarily Americans. So that's something I'm working on, in Congress to make sure that we are, in fact, energy independent and that the independence is benefiting all Americans. But we're also, I know you're in close contact with BG&E. We're going to include in this video some resources that they provide to kind of help with smooth out your billing so it doesn't always come in these steep surges in wintertime or in summertime. So we're going to include that as well. But we're going to continue to be responsive to everybody. Any final thoughts, Mr. President?
We need this is an existential moment for energy and the climate, and so the decisions we make now will have a 20-year impact. And we're looking forward to getting feedback from everyone to make sure we can make the right decisions.
Okay, and you can also reach out to your local and state elected officials as well as my office. Happy to have you reach out to us, but you are also represented by state senators, members of the House, county councils, and talk to all of them about the importance of affordable, reliable energy here in Maryland.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Great.